Huge honor. I get it. Huge honor.
Hello everybody, I'm Huge Honor, and it's a huge honor to give you an update on the dynamic breakables mod today. Well, since I first released that mod, I made a few changes, but the latest update really made a big change to how the damage system works, and I think that warrants a new video. So yeah, let's get this started. Right, so let's go through the settings. There's a lot of changes here, and I think it's the easiest way to explain what's happening. For example, here, the system now moved from away from hits based to damage based. So each weapon can have amount of health and amount of damage that it does, and that gets modified by how hard you swing, what type of weapon is, tier, material, imbue, damage type, and all of that. So yeah, these settings stay almost the same. So this is the first one that changed. I removed the allow players to have breakable weapons and changed it to a player health, player damage multiplier. So if you want, you can set your player health multiplier to, like if you go all the way to the right there, it should say infinite or unbreakable. That means that yours don't break, while as you could also say, I want to increase my damage, so you do more damage to the enemies. So that's the player health and damage multiplier. Then you've got base momentum. Basically, if you click on here, it's used to normalize the momentum. So when you hit, it's not only the velocity, but also it takes the mass of the weapon into account. And so let's say you have a momentum of 50, then it divides it by 100, so that would be 0.5, and then it multiplies it by the damage multiplier. So if you increase this, then it does less damage for lower momentums, and if you lower this, then it increases the damage for higher momentums. Then you've got all the damage types here. So if you do a pierce, how much health does the effect? And you have to understand that health always applies to the weapon that is being hit, that will be broken, and damage is the one that's doing the damage. So for example, if I was to damage with this dagger, the damage calculated on this sword would be based on this value here, and the health would be based on this value here. And then obviously if you damage something, it not only damages from dagger to sword, but also from sword to dagger, and then the roles are reversed. So exactly, that means if your weapon is being hit by a pierce damage, then this multiplier will affect it, and if the other weapon is piercing you, that's the damage that it affects. So for example, you could say a certain weapon. So these settings here, they all apply to everything, but you can also have individual item modules. For like if you're a mod author, you can make that, or I highly encourage that you guys make your own mods that just modify these settings per weapon. So you could say a arrow, for example, you make the slash damage really high, and everything else like pierce and blunt would be high health or low damage. It doesn't really matter, and in that way you can only slash an arrow, but you can't like blunt damage it. Or for example, for a shield, maybe you want only slash and pierce to be able to break it, not blunt damage. And then we've got the unknown type here, and that is when the damage type can't be determined. This is often the case if you hit something that has multiple damages on this weapon, then it might not be able to determine. So the damager will always be correct, but the receiving end might not be able to be determined. And also, obviously, if you hit something that doesn't have a damager, then that would use the unknown multiplier. Then of course we have got the tier as well. So for example, tier 0 is 0, tier 1 is 1, and so on and so forth. You have to understand that the way these multipliers work is they add the base health. So they times this multiplier by the base health or base damage, and then add that on top of that. So you have, for example, 10 health, and then this multiplier would say times 2, so that is 20 health. In total, it would have 30 health. And you can do that now as well here. And then there's also a default tier multiplier, in case for modded weapons, they might have tier 5 or even higher. This is what you can use here, although I would recommend, again, if you're a modder, you can set this in the item module specific, so you don't have to use the default one. You can actually use the correct tier. Then you've got imbue here. So for example, some people suggested that I would make it that fire imbued weapons really easily slice through other weapons. What you could do is fire damage multiplier, put that all the way to the right, so it's infinite. It will come up as instant break, and that means that you will always instantly break something if you have the fire imbue, and you can customize that for all the different types here. I've also made the mending spell now no longer a default way of working. Basically, as you can see here, it's all the way to the right, unbreakable. So if you have something imbued with mending, and then it will be unbreakable. If you don't like that, you can change that here. Again, we've got the default. If there's a spell that's not included in here, again, if you're a mod author, include the spell that you added in here to get more specific settings. And then you've got the same thing for materials as well. Previously, there was a hierarchy, so you couldn't break something on, like I couldn't break a blade on wood. This is now technically possible, but again, you can use those multipliers to make it really hard or really easy. I'm not a gameplay designer. I don't know how to balance things, so I just did some values that feel right for me, but please change them if you like. So for example, I made blade do a lot more damage, but it has not so much health, while it's like plate has a lot of health, and metal is, I think, the strongest. And again, you've also got a default section here for unknown materials. Yeah, that's about it. I'm quickly also going to show off the mending spell that you might not have seen. So this one here, and it looks like this. If you mend something that is already working, so if you imbue it, then it will be unbreakable. So let's just use this. So I can now break this sword without it breaking. And then if you mend something that is already broken, the other piece will like flow next to it, and after 5 seconds, you can change that in the settings, it will go back to normal. If you want to remove the imbue, because the mending imbue is infinite, you just have to add another imbue on it. So, and then lastly, this came a few updates back. It's now supported to always break as many times as you want, because I fixed the way it works, so it should now always be pretty accurate. Alright, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this mod, and as always, it was a huge honor.